ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this training session on solving problems and making decisions in groups. I will be your trainer for this session. My name is Charlotte DeVos, and I've been studying communication for over 5 years now. Thanks to the education and the skills I'm able to gather throughout those years, I've created many programs to help with people try to figure out how to communicate in groups, whether it be in a work-like situation or perhaps even a more casual area like with family and friends. Now, if you would please turn to page 1 of your manual, you will find our introduction. So why exactly is all this so important? Why do we need to learn any of this? Well, according to Forbes magazine, they made an article titled 10 Skills Employers Most Want in 2015. Out of those 10 skills, 3 of them are the ability to work in a team structure, the ability to make decisions and solve problems, and the ability to communicate verbally with people inside and outside of the organization. There are many times where we're given a problem or we're given something that we have to overcome, and we have to deal with it with people that we don't know that well. Maybe it's strangers, maybe we're uncomfortable and you just don't know how to handle it because you don't know how they think. Or perhaps even it's with people you are comfortable with. Perhaps you thought you had it all figured out, you had the solution, but then everything just kind of fell apart at the end. Well, this program is here to help you figure out what exactly to do in the situations. This way, you'll be able to, in any type of group scenario where a problem needs to be addressed and a decision needs to be made, you'll know exactly what to do. Because one needs to be able to carry out proper problem-solving skills in a group setting in order to succeed in their work today. In this economy, you need to get used to group work, as said by Forbes magazine. Now, if you turn to page 2, you will find our training objective, which states by the end of this training session, trainees will be able to summarize and execute the steps for group problem solving. Now, how exactly are we going to do this? Let's look at our agenda or our key points today. I will first do this by defining what group problem solving is. I will then move on to the 6 group problem solving steps and examine them. I will then show you how to choose a solution. I will then show you how to participate in a brainstorming activity, and then test the skills that I've discussed here today to see if you can do a problem-solving activity. So let's turn to page 3 of your manual. You will find what is group problem solving. Seems like a very simple term, one that we can all probably figure out, but let's break it apart, shall we? First, let's look at group. What is a group? Well, maybe it's just a group of people, a bunch of people put together, thrown into a room. There's the business group, there's HR group, and so on. But let's look a little bit deeper, shall we? Let's give it more detail and from a communication point of view. Well, according to the communication professors, Gerald Wilson and Michael Hanna, they gave us a definition of group which states a collection of 3 or more individuals who interact about some common problem or interdependent goal and can exert mutual influence over one another. So it's not simply just a bunch of people who like a certain thing. They have a common goal, a common interest at hand, but also can influence each other because of that, through that, and can succeed even more because of it. So then what is problem solving? Well, according to Business Dictionary, it is the definition of the process of working through details of a problem to reach a solution. So now that we have these 2 defined, we can easily figure out what is group problem solving. It is a group of 3 or more people who have a common problem at hand and can influence each other with their ideas, with their way of thinking, to get through the process of finding the solution to therefore overcome that common problem. Now, to do this, we need to use the group problem solving steps. Now, this list that you see before you today is actually a combination of 2 lists, one from Ohio State Communication Department and one from the Indiana State Communication Department. Now, I do think both of them had very good lists, but I think combining them really shows exactly how this process works. The first step will be how to define a problem. We'll then move on to determining the causes. We'll then move on to develop alternative approaches. Into we need to assess the consequences. Step 5 will be selecting a solution, which will lead us into the last step of developing your implementation plan. So let's begin by moving to page 4 of your manuals, you will find step 1, define the problem. If you cannot properly define the problem, you will not be able to properly find a solution. You need to figure out what exactly is it you're trying to fix. Everyone in your group needs to be able to understand what this is. Sometimes you need to do some research to figure out exactly what it is. Maybe it's a business thing and you have to go back and look at past bank statements and data to figure it out. Or maybe you need even new data and you need to do surveys and look into other resources to figure out what exactly the problem is. Now here we have some questions that Indiana State suggests that you ask during this step. And that is, how long has this problem existed? Has it been a few years, a few days, maybe even a few hours? Or how frequently does it occur? Weekly, monthly? And who is affected by this problem? Is it your customers, your employees, corporate? What? After this step, you will then move on to step 2, which is determine the causes. You may find this on page 5 of your manuals. Now that you have the problem, you need to figure out what is the root of that problem. You cannot properly dismantle it if you do not know all the parts to it. So you need to locate the cause of the problem so that it can be properly dissolved. These are also some questions that Indiana State suggests that you ask during this time. Why does this problem exist? What needs to be changed in both the immediate future and for the long term? Turn now to page 6 of your manual and you will find step 3, development of the alternative approaches. This is the big brainstorming phase. This is where you need to start spitting out ideas, putting them all on the table. Everyone should be able to speak out this time. Everyone should be free to speak their ideas. Just get them all on the table so that way you have multiple pathways to examine for the next step, which we'll get to. You need to generate ideas so that they may contribute to the formulation of the possible solutions. Now, this is actually a list from Indiana State. They want you to ask during this time, what is feasible? What else could we do? Does the issue involve large costs or major consequences for the organization? Now, if you turn to page 7 of your manuals, you will find step 4, which is the assesses of consequences. You have everything laid out for you now, so let's dig a little deeper into each one of them. Let's figure out exactly what are the consequences of each one and list them all out for each idea. Now, some questions that, once again, Indiana State wants you to ask during this time is, who or what will be affected by this solution? And what would be the likely consequences of this solution? Now, there's an activity I would like for you to perform in order to help you get through this brainstorming process. A worksheet for this activity can be found on page 15 of your manuals. You need 3 to 5 people in order to do it. If you have more than 5, that's completely all right. The title of this is Dumbest Ideas First. The first thing that needs to be done is for each person to give the dumbest idea they can think of. No matter what it is, they're allowed to say it. If it is a knife spoon, pants made of cheese, or a license plate with Braille on it, any ideas should be welcome during this time. After all the ideas are written down on your worksheet on page 15, you will then utilize what you have learned in step 4 to see if you fully understand it. Because if you break it down and figure out exactly what that idea was, it may not be as dumb as you think. Maybe a knife spoon may not be a bad idea. Maybe if developed and designed properly, it could be something that all our restaurants could pay good money for. Who knows? But this is just a little exercise for you to do. This exercise will take about 5 minutes of your time. However, if you would like, you can pause the video now to do the activity or continue watching. If you now turn to page 8 of your manual, you will find step 5, which is to select a solution. Now, you need to decide on a solution that your group believes best solves the problem. Now, you've gone through the consequences and you laid out all the ideas. Let's figure out the best one for you to take. There are questions to be asked during this time, and that is, which of these ideas will work best for the problem? Will this actually help us, or will this actually trip us up in the future? Very important questions to be asking at this time. Now, when choosing a solution, there are 4 different methods for selecting this. This image can be found on page 14 of your manual, but you would like to turn to page 9 now. So these are the 4 different methods that you can use: authority rule, compromise, voting, and consensus. Now, according to this chart, this side uses the least amount of group input while slowly going to consensus, which uses the most group input. Now let's break this down. I would like to begin with the 2 that have the least amount of group input. First is authority rule. Now, authority rule happens when the leader of the group or someone of authority in the group decides the solution and doesn't listen to anyone else. Or maybe he's influenced by it, but his word is the one that decides the ultimate solution. No one else, really. So there's not much group input because of this. So it's not really recommended, but sometimes it's how organizations function, sadly. But there's also compromise. Now, compromise is a word that we like to use a lot in today's culture. It's something that we see a lot of joy in. However, in this type of situation, it may be the complete opposite, because the payment may not be equal both ways. You may give up part of your solution to gain part of someone else's, but maybe you're giving up so much and you're not gaining that much in return. This only works if payment is equal, and because of this, these 2 are not quite recommended, but if they do happen to occur, that's completely fine. The 2 that I do recommend are voting and consensus. Now, voting is when everyone gets to have their own input. Everyone gets to say if they agree or disagree and why to each of the solutions. And the solution chosen is the one that has the most amount of votes, obviously, or has at least a 51% majority agreement vote to it. This is highly recommended. But then there's also consensus. Now, consensus is where group members must participate in the crafting of a decision and all agree to adopt in a unanimous decision. Now, as much as we would always like it to have a unanimous decision in any type of group situation, sadly that's not always the case. And because of that, voting is most likely to occur. However, consensus is what we try to aim for, but it's alright if not. These are the 2 methods I would like to recommend when using step 5 of all the steps. We will now move to the next section, which is step 6. This will be found on page 10 of your manual. Now, you need to develop your implementation plan. You've picked your solution. Now let's figure it out. How are we going to make it a reality? This is the whole point of this section. Questions you can ask during this time are: who will be responsible for carrying out the solution? And what is a realistic timetable for the situation bringing a positive return? Now, I have a little example to go through with all of you, and then I'll have an activity for you to do it yourselves. But this is a very simplified version of using the 6 methods. Now, the situation is Billy bumped into Sally and she dropped her ice cream and is now crying. You can find this very same prompt on page 11 of your manuals. Now, to use the first one, let's find the problem. The problem is Sally is crying over her ice cream. Let's move on to step 2 then. What caused this problem? Well, Billy bumped into Sally. That is what caused all of this. So then, step 1 and 2 are done. Let's move on to step 3, the brainstorming section. Now, obviously, there is more than 2 options that can be done with this situation, but given this time and a very simple example, let's only use 2. Option A is that Billy can offer Sally to buy her more ice cream. Or option B, Billy can tell Sally to stop being a big baby and stop crying. So now we have these ideas laid out. Let's move on to the consequences of each of them. Now with option A, Sally will stop crying because she has ice cream, but Billy will not be able to buy his own. With option B, Sally will continue to cry, but Billy will have ice cream. Now, to pick a solution, we're just going to go with a very obvious one. Option A is the one that is chosen. That is why when we move on to the step 6 to the plan, it's just Billy going to buy ice cream as quick as he can. He's about to make that solution that he picked a reality. It's a very simple example, but now a more serious or more realistic type of example. On page 16 of your manuals, you will find the workplace situation activity. You need at least 3 to 5 people for this activity to work. You will simply read the prompt given to you and then use the 6 slides below to go through the 6 steps together as a group to figure out the plan. This project will take about 10 minutes. You may now pause the video to do so or continue watching. So in conclusion, what exactly have we learned here today? We have learned what exactly group problem solving is, which is people of a common interest working together to solve that common problem by generating ideas off of one another. We went through the 6 steps and learned that it can be used in multiple types of situations very easily. And we also learned that we need to be aware of multiple types of solution making. This is a very simple overview, but if you have any questions, please contact me and I may help you with any questions you may have. Thank you for tuning into this training session. Thank you for participating in the activities given, and I encourage you to keep gaining more skills in communication or maybe in just group communication. Thank you for your time and have a nice day.